Louisiana Senator Mary Landrieu has been pushing Washington to help her home state ever since Katrina hit. I talked to her earlier about the recovery and the return of the Super Bowl. What does it mean for the city of New Orleans to have the Super Bowl back?
It means everything, and it gives our whole community and region and state a chance to say thank you, not just to the teams that are descending on us to compete, but to America that's watching for helping us rebuild this really extraordinary and important region for our country.
7.5 years, does it feel like it's been 7.5 years?
In some ways it feels like 2 years, and in some ways it feels like 20, because the work has been enormous, not only the part of the government, the federal government continuing to help and step forward, our state government, our local governments, and volunteers by the thousands are continuing to come in to the New Orleans region, to St. Bernard, to Jefferson, to Orleans, along the Gulf Coast, helping us to rebuild from what is still the worst natural disaster and the failure of a federal levee system that absolutely devastated one of America's most important and most beloved, happily, cities.
We've got the Super Bowl coming back. Does that mean things have returned to normal in New Orleans? Tell us where we stand right now.
Things are not normal, but they're much better than they were 7.5 years ago when Katrina hit. And again, it wasn't just the hurricanes, it was the subsequent break of levees throughout the system, much like the Netherlands. If the dikes in the Netherlands would break, the whole country practically would go underwater. We're very similarly situated and down there for important reasons. I mean, we're not just having fun on Bourbon Street every day and sunbathing on our, little beaches that we have, because we have mostly marsh, but we are managing the greatest river system for the whole nation. The port is spectacularly important. We have one of the great hospitality industries.
You talked about the levee system. How safe is New Orleans today? Is that taxpayer investment? Has it been worth it?
Yes, it has been worth it. But first of all, these investments should have been made back in the 1950s and 60s. The federal government promised and promised after every hurricane, Betsy, Camille, and just fell short and fell short and fell short because the core budget is so compromised at this point and has really been diminished over time. So when Katrina hit, it was just a disaster waiting to happen. It was the hurricane, but it was the levee collapse. And America's infrastructure is, in many parts of this country, even in New York and New Jersey, you saw that with Sandy, in decay. And this country has to wake up and recognize that smart investments in mitigation projects worth it.
You were part of the debate over Hurricane Sandy, sort of had to relive what you went through with Hurricane Katrina. There was a debate, as you know, given the country's fiscal situation, about whether or not this should all be offset, should be paid for up front. You didn't agree with that right now. Tell me why.
Well, pay for and offsets are two different things. We are going to pay for the Sandy recovery. The question is when and how. And my argument is that debate should not take place while people are swimming out of their homes. That's my argument. We don't fight about that while the disaster is going on. We can fight about that for the next year, 2 or 3, but we need to send them money and get their hope and their help. It's very devastating for people to make decisions. It's all the money they have. Are they going to reinvest in their communities or not? And they will make that decision based on the federal government. And my final argument is, when our soldiers needed bullets and they needed new technology to fight the roadside bombs in Iraq, we didn't sit here and debate offsets. We sent them a credit card, they charged it, we'll talk about that later. When our people at home are hurting, they need help, and I feel very strongly about that.
Your biggest frustration 7.5 years later with the rebuilding effort in New Orleans, in Louisiana, along the Gulf Coast, what hasn't been done that you think needs to be done?
Well, first let me say what has been done. We've got extraordinary leadership, a new mayor, and under his leadership, things are really starting to pop. I know him well, and he's been an excellent leader.
Your brother, I should point out.
Yes, my brother, so this is a little, I guess, in the family, but he's doing an excellent job, and he's taking the federal money and really leveraging it very well with private sector, because after a disaster, you've got to have federal money and private sector investment. The one discouraging thing has been some of our poor neighborhoods, the lower 9th Ward, Pontchartrain Park, which was not poor, middle-class African-American, very professors and doctors live in that area. It's been a struggle for some of our neighborhoods to come back in New Orleans East. We haven't had the right kind of tools, but Mitch is working hard on that. So yes, overall, it's a very positive story. Fastest growing city, new entrepreneurs, high tech, a great new generation of kids and young people moving in to help us build and save this great city for America. But we still have to get better at helping poorer and more lower middle class neighborhoods to come back as strongly as the middle class and wealthy neighborhoods were destroyed. And that is a puzzle, and we're working on it because we have to do it in a cost-effective manner.
For those people who come to New Orleans this weekend for the Super Bowl, will they feel the old New Orleans? What will be different about that experience?
Well, the great thing is that we decided, a few of us that led this effort, that we were going to not change too much of the old city except to really focus on what needed to be changed. Better schools, better infrastructure, but we so wanted to capture the soul and spirit that is so precious to us. Now, you can't really make a law about that, so our, Indians and our musicians and our artists, sort of led that charge, and I am forever grateful that they and the people, the spirit of the people, kept itself. And then those of us in a leadership position built around it, hoping to hold that great, what everybody thinks, you'll still feel that, but you'll see it a little more sparkly and a little bit better painted, and the structures are coming back nicely. And of course, the Superdome is a perfect example. If you showed the slides of what it looked like the day before Katrina, the week after Katrina when the levees broke, and today, people can see this great rebirth of a great American city that's a little more European than American.
And you'll be there?
And I'll be there. I will be there, and I'll be so happy to welcome all of our friends, from both shores, the East Coast and the West Coast, to, the really heart and soul of America right there on the Mississippi Delta.
Louisiana Senator Mary Landrieu speaking with me earlier.